The theme of my talk today is 2 things to forget, 2 things to remember. And I'm scared that the moment I state what we should forget, we will never be able to forget it. I have a difficulty remembering names. People, when I get introduced to people, they tell me their name and we have a good conversation. The next time they meet me, I've forgotten the name. It's so embarrassing. Very recently, in fact, after getting inspired by this theme here, I tried to do a reverse thing. Usually when somebody tells me the name, I say, remember Rahul, remember Rahul. And you know what? I forget Rahul. Now I do the reverse. When somebody introduces themselves as Rahul, forget Rahul. Whatever happens, don't remember Rahul, okay? Don't remember Rahul. Forget Rahul. And that name never goes out of my head. So, I am stating that disclaimer right in the beginning that if this happens, I am sorry. But I happened to come across a video recording of an interview that Bhagwan had granted to us 12th standard students, 12th grade students, way back in the year 2000. We had traveled from Prasanthi Nilayam to Brindavan, where Swami was. We were the 12th class students passing out batch. And so we said, Swami, we have come here to seek your blessings because when the academic year gets over, you are not in Parthi. And we want to have one final darshan as students because we don't know how many of us will be coming back for the university. And so when we had gone to Brindavan, Swami very lovingly called us inside Trayee Brindavan, his own residence. And there he spoke to us. He spoke to us for an hour, sitting on the jhula. And one of the main things in that entire discourse, Swami kept emphasizing on 2 things that we should forget. And what are the 2 things? The first thing Swami said that you should forget is the good that you have done to others. Forget the good that you have done to others. And the second thing that you have to forget is the harm that others have done to you. So Swami said, forget these 2 things. The good you have done to others, the harm or the bad that others have done to you. And throughout the discourse, 3-4 times Swami kept emphasizing, re-emphasizing, repeating. He will narrate some story and again come back to this. And he gave reasons why we should forget these 2 things. He said, if you remember the good that you have done to others, it will give rise to expectation. And expectation is sure to bring you anger, dejection, frustration, irritation, and everything. Therefore, do not remember the good that you have done to others. Because you will expect them to do good back to you. I remember an incident, in the year 2008, Bhagwan made a visit to Hadshi and Mumbai. So, in the month of October, he had done this. And 10 days before Swami left, he began to select students who would accompany him. And on that day, I remember I was seated on one side when Swami looked towards me and he said, go in, go in. I was about to get up when few students who were seated with birthday trays, those who would have their birthdays would get a tray with dry fruits and a photograph and akshata grains. Swami would put akshata grains on their head, bless them, bless the dry fruits, and possibly sign a photograph for them or whatever. Now they thought that Swami was calling them, and so they went to Swami with the tray. Now I felt that Swami had called me, but I wasn't sure, so I continued to sit. And after blessing them, Swami again turned towards me and said, go in. Now I was sure, so I got up, walked, went and sat near the interview room door, and I saw that there were other 10-15 students who were seated there. And Swami called us all inside the interview room. And then he told us that, actually he told one teacher who was there, start writing down their names. And he told us that, see, when you go to Hadshi, behave yourselves properly. Now when I heard that statement, I became very happy, because I understood that it means I'm there along with Swami in his entourage to go to Hadshi. So then this went on. Swami was telling the different things to be done there, what are the arrangements being made, how we should behave ourselves, how we should conduct ourselves in a manner befitting Swami's boys. And as he was saying all this, Swami also began to, justify the reason behind each boy being there. He was telling, you will play harmonium for the song, so you are necessary. You will be singing songs, so you are necessary. Then you will be playing the tabla, so you are necessary. So he was asking all this, and everybody got some role except me. So I was also thinking, I need to justify my role. What should I do? Then Swami asked, will anybody give a talk? So I raised my hand. I said, I will speak. And Swami said, but there it has to be in Marathi, because it is Maharashtra. No, I don't know Marathi. So I put my hand down again. I understood that I won't be able to do this. See, it's not as if Swami calls us because he has got work for us. Swami calls us, and for us to satisfy our own ego, he gives us work. He doesn't need any of us to do anything for him. If we think that we are doing something for Swami, it is our ego. It is our foolishness. Because before we came, the world was going on. After we leave, the world will go on. Nothing will get affected. Everything will be the same. It is for us to sanctify ourselves when we are present in the world that God gives us an opportunity, and we should remember that always. So anyway, I didn't get this, so I was thinking, okay, I will do one thing. I will carry my camera and I will photograph. I will document this whole visit. I told Swami, I will take photographs, Swami. Swami said, very good. So now, even as the interview is going on, my thoughts are already planning on how I will be doing this, how I will be taking the photos, and suddenly I realized that it will be nice if even video can be taken, not only photos. But how can I handle both the video camera and the still camera at the same time? So that is when one of the students said that, Swami, in order to sing this song, we need 4 singers, Swami. We are 3 of us. And they suggested one more boy's name. Swami, if he can be there, it will be nice. So Swami turned to the teacher and said, write down that boy's name also. We'll take him also. Then another tabla, that percussion boy says, Swami, if one mridangam is there, it will be even more nice, Swami. I am there for tabla, but one mridangam boy. Who is mridangam boy? And they told the name. And his name was also added. So I thought, okay, let me also ask for one videographer now. I said, Swami, we need one person for video, Swami, taking video. Swami said, what are you going to do? Swami, I'll take photos, Swami. What is the difference? Swami, so much difference is there. So please, we need one videographer. Who is there? Then I suggested the name of one of my colleagues at Radio Sai. I told Swami, Sai Prakash. Does he have a video camera? Yes, Swami, he has got a video camera. Does he have film for the video camera? Oh, yes, Swami, he has got. He has got batteries? Yes, Swami, he has got batteries. It looked like, actually, Swami was thinking a bit whether he should be taken or not. So I thought I'll market him a little more. I said, Swami, he also plays harmonium. For these singers, if they need one extra harmonium player, he can play harmonium. Oh, he plays harmonium. Swami, not only harmonium, he plays sitar also. You remember, Swami, few years back, before darshan, for 15 minutes, you used to play, there used to be a music, and you had blessed this boy only to play sitar also, Swami. So he can play harmonium, sitar, he can also take video. It's like an all-rounder. It's good addition to the team. So I marketed him like that. And Swami turned to the teacher and said, yes, add him to the list. And that's how it happened that, Sai Prakash's name got added to the list. Apparently because I pleaded on his behalf to Swami, which is a foolish thought, because who is going and who is not going is already decided. It's just that different people get roles. The script writer might give a role for an actor in the drama or the movie. Doesn't mean that the actor is in control. The script writer has written the script, so I'm playing out the dialogue. Now, I didn't know all this at that time. Though I knew it, I had forgotten it also. The Hadshi visit happened, got over. Fast forward 5-6 months. In April of 2010, Bhagwan was now going to Delhi and Shimla. And this time, the selection of the students who will be accompanying him took place outside, on the dais there in Kulwant Hall. So Swami was seated and he called the Vice Chancellor. The Vice Chancellor got a big file in which I think there were the profiles of many students, and Swami was going through and saying, this boy, not needed, this boy, and all that. So I was sitting and hoping that, Swami, I hope I get a chance to be in this. At the end of the day, a few students were called for for being informed that they have been selected to travel along with Bhagwan to Delhi. Now this Sai Prakash was there in that group and I was not there. And now you know what Swami says. Forget the good you have done to others. You will understand why. Because the moment I got to know that Sai Prakash is there and I am not there, I went to him and said, Sai Prakash, it's your job to get me onto the visit now, onto the entourage. Now, he was shocked. Now, actually anybody who has interacted with Swami or who knows the ways of the divine, who knows that nothing is in our hands, everything in the Lord's hands, will realize how foolish it is for me to tell that it is your job to get me onto the entourage. He said, Arvind, I don't know what you'll do. Do something. I got you, right? I got you onto the Hadshi entourage. Now you get me onto this Delhi entourage. This is the least you can do for me. Now I'm feeling I have done something good for you. Now you do good for me. What had happened was when I had gone back during the Hadshi visit time and told Sai Prakash that all this happened in the interview room, he told me, hey, thanks man, thank you so much for doing this, That is right on his part. Because Swami actually says, remember the good that others have done to you. So Swami tells that. So he was right on his part. So he was grateful. He expressed his gratitude many times to me, telling that thank you so much. It is such a wonderful thing to be part of this and you were instrumental in that. So he was doing what is supposed to be done. But I was doing what is not supposed to be done. That is, remember the good that I have done to others. And so I started pressurizing him, and that poor fellow, he didn't know what to do. I got upset with him. We sit across each other in the studio. I refused to look at his face. I said, till you tell and get me onto this, I don't want to talk to you. I became very upset because I was so wanting to be there. Those were the days when, by Bhagwan's grace, every alternate day or something, Swami was speaking something with me or the other. As he passes by in Darshan line, he'll ask something, he'll talk something. So I decided that next time when Swami comes and talks to me, I will ask him, Swami, I also want to come with you to Delhi. So I wrote a full letter telling I want to come with you to Delhi, everything, got it ready. And that day, the Sai Prakash meets me and he asks, what is there in that letter? I was shocked. Why should you know what is there in this letter? It's personal between me and Swami. It's none of your business. He said, no, correct, you did not tell me anything, but in case you're asking Swami, take me to Delhi with you, please don't ask. Now, I got even more irritated. First of all, you are not doing your job. On top of that, you are telling me not to work for my own self. You are untrustworthy, you are ungrateful. If I give a biscuit to a dog, it will come, but you are not grateful. I have got you a visit to Hadshi with Bhagwan. At least let me do myself. And he told me, no, it's not like that. See, Swami is talking to you daily. If Swami wants to take you, he will take you. But if Swami doesn't want to take you, and he is giving you the opportunity to talk to him daily, it will be embarrassing for Swami if you get up and tell Swami, take me. Because it will be difficult for Swami to tell you no on the face. So don't ask. Now, what he said actually makes a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense. But I felt that you are not the person who should give me this advice. Because you are not working for me. So I told him, I am not going to tell Swami, I am going to give a letter. He said, it is the same thing, don't do that. I said, if Swami wants to take the letter, he'll take. If he doesn't want to take, he won't take. So it's the same thing, right? I won't be telling him anything, I'll just hold the letter. There is no need for me to justify to him actually, but the heart, the conscience knows what is right and what is wrong. And it pricks you when you know that you are wrong. There's one famous movie, I think it has won multiple awards. It's called The Man for All Seasons. An awesome movie. in which the ruler of the land wants to do something wrong. And there is this man who is like an epitome of goodness. And the king wants this man to tell that what you're doing is right. The man says, I won't tell what you're doing is right because what you're doing is wrong. The king has all his armies, all his power, everything, but he's so feeling weak. He's not able to do it simply because this man says you're doing wrong. That is the power of goodness, that is the power of conscience. Actually, in the movie, the king gets this person killed also. But even after getting him killed, he's not able to do what he plans to do because the voice of goodness, the voice of the conscience doesn't die with the body or the mind. It is something that's permanent. And so too on that day, though by law there is nothing that I should obey Sai Prakash, I just could not think of getting up and asking Swami that, Swami, I want to come with you. So I just held the letter. Swami didn't take my letter. So actually here I can end the episode because it highlights the point I'm trying to make, where if we remember the good that we do to others, we will build on expectations which is not good for the other person or for us. But I don't want to leave you in suspense for the episode. I will complete the episode because what happened was, 2 days before Swami had to leave, I was sitting locked up in my room. I had made plans to go to Kumbh Mela. There was a Maha Kumbh Mela happening, which happens once in 14 years. And I thought, Swami, if you don't take me along with you, I will go to another great pilgrimage place. When you go to Delhi, I will go to Kumbh Mela. I will also fly to Delhi and go to Kumbh Mela. It was my way of trying to get back at Swami or whatever in my childishness. So I was making all these plans. Suddenly Sai Prakash comes to studio and tells, Arvind, come here, something awesome is there about the Delhi trip. I said, I don't want to know anything about the Delhi trip. Because it will make me feel jealous, it will make me feel horrible. If you tell me, Bhagwan has planned a grand thing, then I'll feel terrible. If you tell me that Bhagwan has cancelled the Delhi trip, I'll feel happy. Sadly, that is how we are, Our joys depend on the other's joys and happiness. If somebody comes and tells me that I won $10,000, I'll be very happy. But if they come and tell me that all the others around me won $1 million, I will feel terrible. I have won the same $10,000, right? No, but everybody else got 1 million. My happiness is only relative. I'm not happy if I get 10,000. Instead of that, you come and tell me that everybody lost $10,000 and I got $1,000. I'll be happy. I'll be happy with 1,000. Because it's all relativity. How much above others I am. So to be above others, either I should go up or let the whole world also go down. No problem. I'll feel happy. We don't have absolute happiness at all. Ours is only relative happiness. And that's why Swami says it's ephemeral. Today I am happy because I have 10,000 more than you. Tomorrow somebody comes who has 20,000 more than me. Then I'm gone. My happiness is all gone. Swami says, what is the use of such happiness? So anyway, as I said, I didn't want to hear anything about the Delhi visit because it will make me feel miserable. See, these are the conditions where listening to the Lord's glory can make you miserable. Because you are comparing with something else. You are not focused on the Lord's glory. He came and then he said, no, he barged into my room and he said, Arvind, you're there. You're there in the entourage. Instant, my mood changed. What is that? What is that about Delhi? Tell me more. Tell me more. I want to know now that I'm there in the entourage. He told me, no, the Vice Chancellor had called us. And at the end of the meeting, he said, what is that photographer's name? Anand, is it? He said, no, sir, Arvind. Why hasn't he come here for any of the meetings? So because he hasn't been called. Oh, then I forgot, I think. You tell him he's there. He's there from day one itself. I'm there from day one itself. Swami had told, I forgot to inform him. So he has forgotten, that's why. So this 1 week of misery was self-inflicted misery. My planning to go to, I'm saying now, see, when you get to know of the Lord's plans, how foolish you feel. I'm sitting and writing, Swami, how could you drop me? Please take me in the letter. Swami is thinking, what are you writing? I've already picked you. No, Swami, what is this unfair? Swami, I'm planning to go to Kumbh. I'm making bookings. Why are you making the bookings? I'm taking you. The difference is I don't know the future. The Lord knows the future. Which is the case always in my life. Whenever I complain, let me remember that the Lord knows my future and He has planned. instead of complaining, because when the future comes, let me not feel embarrassed into, oh, how foolish I have been. My life is filled with things like this, where after some time I feel, oh, how foolish I have been. Oh, the Lord knew better. If only I can think in that manner when the problem actually comes, or when I'm actually thinking that things are going wrong, that is when possibly I have moved a few steps spiritually. So that evening, I was seated in the mandir, I was oozing with gratitude. I wrote a letter, thank you so much, Swami, and I was so happy. And as Swami came close, he was not taking my letter, so I said, no problem. I closed my eyes and gently touched his feet. And there was that gentle touch on my head. I felt so thrilled. I opened my eyes, it was not Swami. It was the Vice Chancellor who was walking behind. He's tapping me on my head and telling, did you get the information? I said, I got, sir. But you simply gave me false Ananda now, because I thought Swami had touched my head. So anyway, I got the opportunity. I could accompany Bhagwan to Delhi. But the long and short of it is, when I do good and remember the good I have done, it results in misery only, because it builds up expectation. And that's why Swami says, one thing that you must forget is the good that you have done to others. Just do good and forget about it. Forget about whom you have done to. In fact, Swami would say, the good that the left hand does, the right hand should not come to know. Just do it. Out of nature, just do it. And let it go. And the other thing that Swami says is, forget the harm that others have done to you. It was the year 2006 or 2005 maybe. More than 10 years ago, when I had been to Bombay and I was learning how to drive. I got my driving license. And one of the first few times when I took the car out for a long drive, along with my parents, we were visiting one uncle. On the way, I'm not yet a skilled driver. There was a bike person who came very close to the car, because of which I got a bit unnerved and I moved the car. The car slightly hit him. Not a big hit, a slight touch. And he lost a little balance. He didn't fall, but he stopped the bike and he stopped the car. I also stopped to ask what had happened. In his fit of anger, he hit and broke the mirror and the glass. Now I got angry, I got down and pushed him and I said, what are you doing? And I went to break his bike's mirror. And when I went to do that, he caught hold of my collar. And my mother came down to stop him. He pushed my mother and he slapped me. And before I could go and do anything else, a crowd gathered and he escaped off. One huge crowd gathered and escaped off. This happened somewhere in 2004 or 2005. Believe me, as recent as 3 months ago, for some reason I remembered this. And when I remembered this, I felt so much of injustice. I felt, he hit my mother, he hit me, he broke my glass, and, I closed my eyes, I could feel tension in my arms. Mentally, I imagined myself giving one big blow onto his head, such that his teeth breaks, ta. And I felt some kind of, relief. But after that, within 2 weeks, once again this happened. That is when I went to my mother and asked, do you remember this? This had happened. She has no recollection at all. And I was thinking, even now as I'm thinking that feeling of irritation, that anger, it just wells up within me. See, that episode is over 12 years ago. I'm not having any pain from the slap. I have changed my car already. Nothing my mom doesn't remember. And yet, every time I recollect that, I go through hell. And I curse that person. Swami says, one time you get angry, the energy that has been built up over 3 months from your food and spiritual practices get worn out. So just like positive thoughts, negative thoughts also make an impact. How much I'm harming that person, I have no idea. And this is what happens if we remember the harm that others have done to us. That's why Swami says, forget the harm others have done to you. It's no use. Both these things, remembering the good that we have done to others and remembering the harm that others have done to us, both of them are not beneficial for the other person as well as for us. I really realized that. How sapping it is. Every time I think of it, I feel so weak, I feel so drained. And it's an intense memory. So many of us have got like these memories. It's a sad thing that we remember the sad things. When we think of a person, we think of all the bad that he or she has done to us. Somehow it's like that. Swami says that is what you have to forget. We always remember the bad that others have done. Swami says counter it. When you see a person, however bad, whatever enemy, whoever he may be, think of only the good that he has done to you. And when we do this, let us not be under the false impression that we are doing it as a great spiritual sadhana. We are doing it for the betterment of the world. No. We are doing it for our own betterment. Because I know how much it pains. Every time when I think of that, an episode that happened now 14 years back, 14 years ago, an episode that took place for 5 minutes, has made me get agitated, hateful, revengeful, and angry multiple times over the years. How much harm it is doing to me. It's for my own good that I don't remember the bad that others have done to me. Let us examine our own selves. If at all we have thought about the bad that others have done, most of us would have thought of it. Has there been even one time when we have felt good? When I have felt happy, positive, cheerful, that person messed my life. Wow! I have never felt like that at all. Now, why would I want to simply invite anger, frustration, irritation, hatred or revenge onto myself, which makes me feel bad? All these things, revenge, hatred, anger, irritation, they are like acid. They harm the vessel in which they are stored more than onto the vessel in which they are poured. We think that we are pouring anger onto another person, but we are storing that anger in that vessel for so long, it harms the vessel in which it is stored more than the vessel into which it is poured. And therefore, Swami says, forget these two things. These are the two things that we have to forget. The good that you have done to others and the harm that others have done to you. Just forget it. I know it's difficult like the mango. It'll keep popping up again and again in the head. Whenever I see a person, the first thing that I remember is the good that I have done to him and the bad that he has done to me. That is the reason I feel egoistic. I feel, see, I am such an awesome person. I keep doing good to others and others keep doing bad to me. It reminds me of a person from our history who thought like this. It is said that Lord Krishna told Duryodhana and Yudhishthira, the eldest of the Pandavas and the eldest of the Kauravas, one the epitome of goodness, one the epitome of wickedness. He told Duryodhana, go and find one good person in this world. And he told Yudhishthira, go and find one bad person in this world. Yudhishthira, who was an epitome of dharma and goodness, comes back and tells, Lord, there's nobody bad in this world only. There's nobody bad. I searched everywhere. If at all there is anybody bad, maybe it's me. I don't know. But there is nobody bad. Krishna says, good. Then he calls Duryodhana. Duryodhana comes and says, Lord, there's nobody good in this world. Everybody is junk. Everybody is bad. If at all there is anybody good, possibly me, Lord. That's all. This is what Duryodhana tells. This is what Yudhishthira tells. About the same world. Same world. It was not as if one was sent to Mars and other to Pluto. Both were sent to the same world. But both got back different feedback. What is the difference? That's why Swami says there's nothing wrong in Srishti. Nothing wrong in creation. It's all in your drishti, in your vision. That's why have samyak drishti. Have good vision. The world is what we see of the world. When we see peace, we feel the world is peaceful. The world is neutral. It is neither positive nor negative. Or it is both. And it is left to us what we pick. That's why Swami says, pick what you have to remember, pick what you have to forget. Forget the harm others have done to you. Try to remember the good that others have done to you. When I joined as a student here in the college, in the school, I heard a legendary story. I don't know the name of this person because the name was not told in order to keep it anonymous. But the story is very powerful and it was narrated about this one person who was living with Bhagwan. He lived with Bhagwan for 3 years. Helping Bhagwan. In the name of helping Bhagwan, you get the opportunity to stay with Swami. But he was apparently very arrogant. He never treated anybody properly. He would walk in and walk out of Swami's room as he wanted. Many people felt he is not giving the proper reverence to Swami. And they kept, whenever a few people got the opportunity, they asked Swami, why are you keeping such a person who doesn't know the value of what he's getting? Just let him go, Swami. Swami said, no, not now. Kept him. So whenever people would ask, Swami said, no, not now. 3 years later, Swami said, you leave and go. Just sent him off. He also left and went because it didn't matter for him. He just left and went. Swami said, go, don't come back and expect that you will get this again from me. Sent him off. And then Swami said, when I was in my previous body at Shirdi, when I was roaming around, for 3 days, this person in his previous birth gave me shelter. I had to repay that, For 3 days, Swami repaid with 3 years. 3 years. It's always like that. The Lord is always like that. Draupadi tore a small part of her sari. In return, Krishna gave her Guinness Book of World Record sari. 2-kilometer long sari he gave. 3-kilometer long sari. That the bodybuilder Dushasana, he pulled and he got fatigued, but the sari didn't end. The Lord adds a multiplier of infinity. That's why even the smallest thing we do for God comes back to us multiple times. But what we do to the world goes waste. Just see, when you offer Naivedyam, that is food to God, it comes back to you as prasadam, almost untouched. Even physically, that is what used to happen. On a few occasions, like as I said during Hadshi or Delhi, when we got the opportunity to live with Swami, I got the opportunity to see some of these things. Food comes from 50 places. So much food. Everybody wants to offer to Swami. What Swami does, touches everything. Touch. And what's at the fingertip, that he'll. That's all. And send it back. So with all devotion, nicely you're cooking the vadas and dosas and all. Why in the evening you will only be eating it. When you make for the Lord, you will get to enjoy it. Same thing you cook for the guests. They will come eat it and go. Nothing will be left for you. That's what it is. So whenever we do to the Lord, it comes back to us millionfold. So for those 3 days, Swami sheltered this person for 3 years. Because Swami lives. He says, my life is my message. Remember the good that others have done to you. Even if he remembered the good that he had done, this boy had done in the previous birth, if he looks at his 3-4 days of all this stupid behavior, it should have mitigated it, right? But Swami not only remembers the good that he has done, he also doesn't remember the bad that has been done. He leaves it. He leaves it. When he has come in the physical frame to teach us a lesson, Swami has lived that lesson. I remember another episode, that's why Swami says, love lives by giving and forgiving. It gives. Just gives. Doesn't remember it doesn't remember the good that it has done. And it forgives. What is meant by forgiving? Forgiving means forgetting. Unless you forget, you can't forgive. Even if I have told that person, who broke my car mirror and the glass, if I have told him that I have forgiven you, actually I have not forgiven him. Because 10 years later, I still remember that with a lot of anger and irritation. So if I truly have to forgive somebody, I have to forget it. Unless I forget the bad that somebody has done, I can't forgive. It's only a myth that I am thinking that I am forgiving people, I am a forgiving person. No. Professor Anil Kumar, he had narrated one episode once. I don't know if he has narrated it, but he was saying that on one occasion Swami called him inside Trayee Brindavan, and he was there alone with Swami, and Swami was reading a letter. Reading that letter, Swami showed it to him and said, see, what is it? The author of that letter had complained so many things about Anil Kumar to Swami. Swami was showing him, see what all people are telling about you. So you saw, there were some serious complaints, false ones, but real serious allegations. Now, very interesting. Swami asked him, so what should I do? To you, what should I do? He said, Swami, you know everything, do whatever. Swami said, tell me what I should do. Swami, I told you, whatever. No, not to you, to the person who has written the letter. No, you could have just said, Swami, all this is false, you go and kick him out, He said, Swami, he or she might have grown in the body, but maybe they have not grown mentally, Swami. So, as a mother would forgive the child, you forgive the child, Swami. And he says, Swami said, Anil Kumar, and embraced him in joy. Swami, through every of his action, every of his word, he shows what he likes. This is a very, very special avatar. The avatar comes and tells you, do this, I'll be happy. Don't do this, I will be happy. You want to please me, this is the way to please me. So clearly everything the avatar says, we just have to follow it. In order to follow it, we have to know it. In order to know it, we have to make efforts to know. Read or listen. I feel very guilty. I don't daily read or listen to Swami's discourses. And I claim to be a devotee of Swami. Shouldn't I spend at least half an hour a day either reading his discourse or listening to his discourse? Because I have seen in my own experience that the same discourse heard on another day makes a new meaning. How can I claim to be a Swami's devotee when I don't do what is dear to him? I foolishly think, no, whatever I do it as an offering to Swami. It's good to start off like that. I'm driving a bus, I will drive it for Swami. I work as a clerk, I will do that for Swami. Whatever I do it for Swami. But I still feel that is just the first level. I'm doing whatever I like to do, and that I'm offering to you. I like to do photography, so I'll do photography and tell Swami, this is my offering to you. I like to drive a bike, so I'll drive a bike and tell Swami, I'm offering it to you. It is better than not thinking of Swami at all, but still, it is doing what I like and offering it to Swami. When will I progress to doing what he likes and offering it to him? My mother never tells me, you know what, I like dosa, I'll make and give you. My mother asks, what do you like? What do you like, I will give you. That is what love is. Love makes sacrifice because it doesn't matter what I like, it matters what you like. And if we feel Swami loves us, and if we feel we love Swami, shouldn't we do what Swami likes? And we are so blessed because Swami has said. And I feel guilty that I'm not even making efforts to find out what Swami has said. It's there. The discourses are there. More than 700 are uploaded free there on radio site to listen. Books, 35 volumes, Sathya Sai speaks. But no, I'm actually more interested in listening to people's stories. I want to be in primary school only. I want to listen to others' experiences. Swami would say, when somebody else eats, is your hunger satisfied? No, you should eat. You should enjoy. So when you want to eat yourself, why are you satisfied with others' experience? Yeah, of course, nothing wrong. It's good to listen to others' experience. If I'm going to a restaurant for the first time, I ask somebody, hey, what's good there? What do they make nice? That's nice, okay. But I won't stop at that. I will go order that and I will also eat it. I cannot be satisfied by him eating it. Swami says, same way. Listen. Listen to what others are saying and experience the joy that they got. And then that should harden into a resolve into you that let me also experience this. What is the use of going to Disneyland and watch others shout and scream and enjoy the ride? I also want to enjoy the ride, right? How long will I be satisfied by just looking at people sitting on the ride? Let me go pick up my ticket and go and sit. That is what Swami says should happen. In fact, I came across a discourse that Bhagwan had delivered on the 20th of August, 1984. He had called all the overseas devotees into the bhajan hall and spoke to them alone. And there he has given some beautiful tips. I'm recollecting this because this is what I blogged about just yesterday. The whole discourse. In that, Swami clearly states, why are you coming to Prasanthi Nilayam? Is it a resort? Is it a tourist destination? If you're coming for this, you're bound to be disappointed. When I say that, oh, the facilities are bad, good food is not available, everything shuts down by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock I'm not allowed in the gate, these people are rude, he speaks rudely to me, this fellow does like this. What if I say that things have actually improved over the last 15 years? This is the improved version that we are complaining about. Because Swami has clearly said in the discourse that this place is not meant to be a tourist resort. If you want people opening the door for you, offering you great food and comfort and speaking very lovingly and everything, go and stay in a resort. This is an ashram. Your body may not get comforted, your mind may not get comforted, but the soul will progress. It is with that attitude you come here. I recently went to Tirupati 3 days back. Oh my God, what a crowd it was, It's getting crushed. And I have been pampered here. Even the most crowded days, I get to go right up till there, touch. And here I get 20 meters away. For that I stood in the line for 2 hours. But guess what? Nobody is complaining. Everybody is shouting, Govinda, Govinda. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was a revelation for me. I said, Swami, you have been too kind on me. You have been too kind on me. I keep complaining. What is this? Oh my God. Had I been staying in Tirupati, I don't think I would have gone for darshan daily. Because it's too much. How can I spend 2 hours standing in a line? Here really, Swami, nowhere else. I was just thinking, nowhere else in the face of the earth is there a temple where the sanctum sanctorum is open for all to see for 2 hours. In Tirupati, I went there, and the moment you get the darshan, Lord, and you're about to pour your heart, and one hand comes and pushes you aside, over. For all the 2 hours that I stood. But Swami would say, that is what it is. There was a time when Swami would say, everybody has to take Pad Namaskar in the Pata Mandir. And so they would say, Swami, how many times? We already took 5 times. Swami said, no, compulsory you have to take. Okay, Swami. When it's available free, we don't value it. We don't value anything that is available free. When I go outside for a heart surgery, it is 3 lakhs and I don't know how to get 3 lakhs. My friends don't give me. My family doesn't give me. They say, no, we don't have money. We have other things. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I think I will die. That time when I come to super specialty and 3 lakhs operation is done free, I say, wow, what a thing it is. Without experiencing that, I don't know the value of that. I got my education free. I get my darshan free. What's so great in going near Samadhi and going? Let's not do. 20 years from now, just like Shirdi, it will get crowded. I won't be able to enter Kulwant Hall. Then I feel, oh God, those were the days. I missed it. Because people are saying that. Hey, Swami was available, I could garland Swami. Swami would tell, take Pad Namaskar. I didn't take. Why should we repent? It's because everything is relative, as I said. I feel in a crowded Tirupati, if I get to see for 1 second, it's a blessing. But in an empty Kulwant Hall, even if I sit half an hour, what's so big deal in that? Anybody can sit. No, anybody can't sit. Just like anybody who has to have darshan in Tirupati has to be called, anybody who has to have darshan at Puttaparthi has to be called. So whether I'm called with 5,000 people or 5 lakh people or 5 people, I have been called. And in that entire discourse, Swami speaks about how we should focus on building that relationship with Swami when we are in Parthi, when we are in Prasanthi. Nothing else you need to do. But we don't. Many of us don't do it because we don't even know it. We don't know it because possibly we have not made efforts to find out. If there is eagerness to find out, Swami says, I will come to you. So those are the 2 things we have to forget. Coming back to the theme, Swami also said there are 2 things that you have to remember. What are the 2 things to remember? Of course, one of that came there that Swami said, remember the good that others have done to you. But during his discourse in 1972 in the summer course, Swami said 2 things to forget are what bad others have done to you and good you have done to others. And the 2 things you have to always remember is that everybody is going to die. Death is certain. And the other thing, God is certain. That's all. These are 2 things that you have to always remember. And if we look at that in a little depth, we will realize that remembering these 2 will help us forget those 2. Just remembering the fact about death, I'm speaking of death because recently 2 stalwarts, great devotees, sages, if I may call them, passed away. One was Mrs. Ratanlal, whom we fondly called as Amma. The other was Mr. Raman Rao, the first Sevadal, the first person to be given the Sevadal badge and scarf in Hyderabad. And when somebody passes away, you suddenly get shocked. It's not that they were young. Ratanlal auntie was 96. Raman Rao sir was beyond 70, reaching 80. So it's not that they died young or something like that, but still, death is a very powerful thing. In one discourse, Swami says, Narada was asked, what is the most funny thing that you have noticed? And Narada replies, that on earth I noticed that the dying are crying for the dead. Everybody is dying, are headed towards death only. But they cry when somebody dies. As if by their crying, the person who has died is going to come back alive. Or by their crying, they are not going to die. The dying are crying for the dead. That is what I feel very funny. If we remember death, that is what is finally going to happen. The best advantage of that is that our priorities get set right. Alexander set out to conquer the world. He wanted to take over all the lands and all the riches. And Bhagwan narrates the story of how when he died, he had a request. When he was dying, he called and said, in my coffin, make 2 holes on the sides, left and right, and let my hands come out. Let the whole world see that Alexander, who conquered the world, is leaving the world without anything. And Swami said on his deathbed, he felt, how foolish have I been. I have gathered things that I can't take with me at all. Death brought back priorities for Alexander. He realized that conquering the world was not at all his top priority. They say the wise learn from the experience of others. Should we die in order to realize our priorities? Why not be like Siddhartha? He saw somebody else dying and he said, oh my God, I don't want this palace. I don't want all this. I don't want any of this. Because finally I am going to die. And he became the Buddha. He became the Buddha. Can we be the Buddha and not Alexander? In another discourse, Swami narrates, he says, there was a man who had 3 friends. And this man fell into wrong habits. He got arrested and he had to go to court. But he had to clear his name. Though he has done some wrong things, he is not guilty. He has to prove himself. So he goes to one of the friends and tells, you're my friend, right? He says, yes. Can you come with me to court? I say, no, I don't want to involve my name in this court and all that. Once my name gets involved, my whole life, I don't know what will happen. See, to a restaurant, to a bar, to anything, I'll come. To a disco party, I'll come, but not to I can't come with you to the court. So he goes to the second friend. Second friend says, yes, I'll come to the court. I'll be support. But don't call me into that witness box. Don't. I don't want to get exposed like that. I will be there. I will help you. I'll come till there. But after that, it's by yourself. And Swami says he goes to a third friend and the third friend tells, I will come. I will stand witness for you. If you have to go to jail, I'm ready to go to jail also along with you. Don't worry. So who is the true friend? Swami says in life also, your wealth, position, power, authority, the moment you die, that's it. It lets go of you. In fact, Swami says, they come and take away your ring, your earrings, your nose ring, and because it's made of gold. And in that hurry, sometimes they cut your nose and ear. I've seen that happening also. They may cut it off. They don't care. The second type of friends are your friends and relatives. They will come up till the court. They will come till the burial ground. But that's it. Usually in the Bharatiya style, we cremate the bodies. It is burnt. And when the body is burnt, the spinal cord, because of the heat, it bends. So when it bends, the body that is lying slightly gets up like this. That is why before cremating, they'll keep a huge log of wood on the chest, so the body doesn't rise up like that. But Bhagwan has given an interpretation for that also. He says, when the body is being burnt, the moment it is lit on fire, everybody leaves. That time the body gets up to see who are there still with me. Nobody is there. Swami says it's only the third kind of friend. Who is that third friend? The deeds, the good deeds that you have done and the bad deeds that you have done. Good or bad, whatever it is. That is the only thing that will come to you beyond this life also. So death is something that we have to always remember. It will help us ensure that we forget the good we do to others and the bad that others have done to us. Just imagine when I'm fighting with somebody. It may be my own mother, my wife, my brother, my sister, my friend. I get into an argument. Now just imagine if you come to know that tomorrow he is going to die or you are going to die. Will this fight matter? It will not matter at all. And the truth is, I don't know. Actually tomorrow he may die or actually tomorrow I may die. I'm not telling this from a negative point of view, but it's such a honest thing. We never know when we are going to leave. We have neither decided our birth, nor have we decided our death. It's only the life in between that we can decide. And when we are deciding only that much, why should we decide it in a negative way? How it will change perspective? If this were to be my last day on earth, because it possibly may be, how will I interact with anybody? I will not fight at all, because it doesn't matter. You cheated me of 1,000 rupees, it doesn't matter because tomorrow I'm going to die. How does it matter that 1,000 rupees doesn't come? It changes our perspective. That's why Swami says, two things to remember. One is death. Don't forget. Remember always that you're progressing towards death. It will automatically set right your priorities. It will make it easy for you to forget those two things. And finally, why remember God? Because Swami says it is good deeds, but it's only God. God is a friend who comes beyond death also, who is there across lifetimes. Otherwise, why would Swami say that no problem, let this boy be with me for 3 years? I don't know who was my wife in my previous birth. I don't know whether I had a wife in my previous birth, because I don't know whether I was a man in my previous birth. Because I don't know whether I was a goat in my previous birth. I don't know what I was. So all the relationships and friendships that I built in my previous birth are over. I start afresh now. And I will start afresh in my next life. But my relationship with God continues across lifetimes. We have seen it in multiple incidents. One I narrated just now about that boy. So why not foster something that is eternal? It is there in the past, it is there in the present and in the future also. And that is why Swami says, remember God. Because if we remember only death and not God, though it makes us forget the other two things, we will live our whole life in fear. Abhaya only God can give. That is why Swami says, two things that you always have to remember is death and God. Remembering God, everything is taken care of. In fact, that is what Swami would say, He would say we need Daiva Priti, Papa Bhiti, Sanganiti, which is love for God, fear of sin, and morality in society. And Swami would say, if you want Sanganiti, if you want morality in society, you need Papa Bhiti, you need fear of sin. Today that is lost. It is lost. All the deeds we do, we say, so what? It's my freedom, I can do. People are speaking about the freedom of speech to insult. It's my freedom of speech. I will insult you. There was a bombing at Charlie Hebdo in France. And the terrorists, whom we call as terrorists who bombed, they say that you insulted our prophet. And here they say, no, it's our freedom to insult. It's my freedom of speech. Okay, but why do you want to use it? Why do you want to use that freedom of speech? There is no morality in society because there is no fear of sin. Because it is called my freedom. I can do whatever I want. I will have multiple partners. I will have multiple relationships. Why? It's my freedom. It's my life. I will do whatever I want. It's my freedom. There was a person who was swinging his umbrella. And he said, it's my freedom. The other person there said, it is your freedom, my dear fellow, but remember, your freedom ends where my nose begins. Because if it strikes my nose, I'm going to punch your face and say, it's my freedom. That's what will happen. There will be chaos. There will be lawlessness. If there is no papa bhiti, if there is no fear of sin. But Swami says, fear of sin will not come unless you have daiva priti. Why should I fear sin? That is the question people ask. Why should I do this? Why should I not have multiple partners? Why should I not go and do this? Why should I not hit somebody? Why should I not do? There's no reason. But if it is somebody who loves Swami, I can simply say, don't do this because Swami doesn't like it. Oh, Swami doesn't like it, then I don't want to do. I don't want to do anything that Swami doesn't like. I don't want to do anything that Jesus doesn't like. I don't want to do anything that Rama doesn't like. Swami says, Daiva Preeti, if it is there, Papa Bhiti comes automatically. And when there is Papa Bhiti, there is Sanganiti also. In fact, I'll conclude with, Swami says the other 4 F's. Swami says, follow the master, face the devil, fight till the end, finish the game. In fact, these are not 4 separate commands. It is just one command. Because if you follow the master, it's done. It's done. Follow the master, you'll automatically face the devil. You'll automatically get the perseverance and strength to fight till the end. You will 100% finish the game. It's not 4 different things to be done. It's just one thing to be done. Follow the master. Daiva Priti. That's why Swami says, remember God. I'm grateful to Swami for this opportunity, for sharing his love. More than anybody else, Swami, it has benefited me the most. In conclusion, I would just like to reiterate once again the theme. The 2 things to forget are 1, the good that we have done to others. 2, the harm that others have done to us. And the 2 things to remember, which will help us forget those 2 things, is that 1, we are all headed towards death. Death is the ultimate destiny. And second thing, the only way to overcome death is by remembering God. So 2 things to remember are God and death. 2 things to forget are the good that we have done to others and bad that others have done to us. Praying to Swami for the strength to be able to remember these 2 things and forget these 2 things. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.